Hey, souls and spirits out there, and welcome back, and happy April. I'm your host, Reverend Lexi Hovis, and today we'll be diving into something deeply sacred, powerful, and rooted in community. It's the history and traditions of the powwow. I went to the 13th annual Indiana University powwow over the weekend, hosted by the IU First Nations Club that I was actually a part of when I attended college there back, oh gosh, from 2010 to 2015. I actually believe I attended the very first couple of powwows that they actually hosted, which were in a conference room. And now they've actually moved into the gymnasium that hosts the volleyball team. And so it's grown so much since that first one, and I am so happy to see it. Powwows are this vibrant cultural gathering that's filled with dancing and music and the beautiful regalia, the outfits, and they are so much more than that. They are living expressions of identity and resilience and spirituality and connection for many indigenous people across North America. Before we begin, though, I want to acknowledge that powwows are a sacred cultural tradition belonging to indigenous communities. This episode is meant to honor and educate and uplift Native culture. Even though I do consider myself part of, the Native culture, I'm not someone who grew up on a reservation. And so I don't want to take away from that, if that makes sense. I can trace the Native heritage in my bloodlines, but I'm not someone that's fully Native. And so I encourage you to continue learning directly from various indigenous voices and communities, and the information's out there if you're willing to look. A powwow is a social gathering held by many indigenous nations where people kind of come together from all over to dance, to sing, to honor traditions, and to strengthen their beliefs. The word powwow is believed to come from the Ilongonian Indian word powwow, which translates roughly to he dreams, but it had a reverence or a kind of religious significance, meaning more like, the medicine person, the spiritual leader. The concept of powwows possibly originated among the tribes that inhabited the Great Plains. Many Plains Indian tribes formed these intertribal alliances, but since most things in history, especially indigenous culture, was kind of word of mouth, and, so much of it was erased. So who knows how long tribes have really been coming together to share their ceremonial dances and storytelling and spiritual rituals and celebrating, season changes or victories. I mean, they gathered as tribes, to celebrate everything that happened within their communities. So who knows, if they were on good terms with other tribes, like how long that they have been gathering like this. We probably will never know. However, everything changed during colonization. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, the U.S. government imposed laws that banned many indigenous spiritual practices and ceremonies. Cultural expression was completely suppressed, and traditions were forced underground. From 1883 to 1978, that's insane. Native American spiritual ceremonies were outlawed, like completely outlawed, by the government under the Code of Indian Offenses to try to force assimilation. Of course, a lot of these ceremonies had to go underground in a manner of speaking. They had to do them, completely away from everyone, privately, try to be really careful to keep their heritage alive. But thankfully, in 1978, the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was passed that protected the rights of Native Americans to openly practice their culture again. From kind of that point forward, powwows experienced a revival, and today they are a thriving expression of culture and resilience, and they've probably changed a lot. They've kind of adapted with the times. Powwows today can be traditional with an emphasis on, ceremony and community, where it would probably be closed to the public, just people a part of that tribe or shared tribal people. But a lot of them are open to the public and have competitions kind of within them for different dance style categories with prizes, or it can even be, often a blend of both of this sacred ceremony, but also the dancing that has become such a big part of their culture. While, it may look like as you walk up, it looks like a festival, the bright colors, the foods, the vendors selling jewelry and clothing. It's still a very deeply spiritual space. They honor the ancestors. They're celebrating identity. They're preserving their culture. They're creating these spaces to gather as community. Many tribes participate, and each one kind of brings its own traditions and songs and styles to make every powwow unique. At the heart of every powwow is the drum. The drum is a representation of the pulse of Mother Earth. And I mean, if you hear that, it feels like a heartbeat. The singers gather around this large drum and they sing together. The songs they sing carry such deep ancestral honor and knowledge. You can just feel it in every single note when you're there. When I hear the drums, I automatically kind of go into this spiritual place within my body. It's one of my all-time favorite sounds is the drum at a powwow. And if you get to hear that and you get to hear the singing, sometimes I just want to sit there and cry. It just brings such like a weird response to my body. Like I'm uplifted and I'm sad at the same time. It's very strange. But we have dancing there as well, which is one of the most recognized parts of powwow culture today. There are several different styles of dance, including, but definitely not limited to, men's traditional dance, which is rooted in kind of warrior traditions and telling of stories of hunting and scouting before a battle and, protection. They have the fancy dance, which is a dance that features vivid, colorful outfits with fast, energetic movements. They usually have the two large busts of feathers worn on, the upper and the lower back, and they are just beautiful when you watch them move. The grass dance is a dance featuring clothing with long, flowing fringes and designs that kind of mimic the grass blowing in the wind. The chicken dance, where the dancers imitate the mating dance of the prairie chicken. That one's always fun. Women's traditional, where the dancers perform with very controlled and kind of precise movements. Women's jingle dress, which is probably my favorite out of all of them. The dress that the dancers wear is adorned with these metal cones that create this kind of sweet healing sound when the dancer moves. It almost sounds like a little bit like wind chimes, but almost softer. This dance is associated with healing. And as the story goes, a father of a girl that was very sick with no signs that she would ever recover prayed to the great creator for assistance on what he should do to help her. And that night he received a dream where he was shown how to create this special dress and was given instructions on a dance that was supposed to be done in that dress. When he woke up, he created that dress and placed it on his daughter that was sick. And in spite of her illness, she was still able to get up and dance. And the more she danced, the stronger she became, and her illness slowly went away. I love that. I love the symbology of it and the beauty of how, these cones make music and how music can heal the body of physical ailments and even mental ailments. Like music is such a strong healer itself. And that's what this is doing, but also the movement of dance where you're creating, music and art to heal the body, not, taking a medicine or whatever. It's a very spiritual thing. We also have the women's fancy shawl dance, which has been described as kind of the butterfly dance because it represents when a butterfly emerges from its cocoon, symbolizing transformation and grace. I also think it's beautiful. They look like birds almost with the different wingspans, with the different shawls, and it's wonderful. Each dancer's regalia is not a costume. You do not touch it without their permission. It's often handmade and deeply personal. It can represent their family, their lineage, their tribal identity, their personal identity, and the journey that they have, went on throughout their lives. And it can change over time. They can add different things to it as time goes on. Every single piece on it has meaning. The colors, the beads, the feathers. It is a sacred object to that person. Powwows often have important traditions and kind of protocols. So if you ever attend one, it's important to be respectful and aware. Usually there is signs or something that kind of shows what ones that they are looking for that specific powwow, like if you're allowed, like where you're allowed to be, photography, things like that. It always starts with a grand entry where the dancers enter the arena in a specific order, often led by veterans and elders and flag bearers, and then the dancers. There's often opening songs performed and prayers. The arena is a sacred circle. It represents the circle of life where, there is no beginning and end. It is a very sacred place where the dancing and the singing and the drumming happens. Elders are deeply respected in the community, and the drum is seen as sacred as well. You respect it. You treat it almost like a human being. You don't touch it, you don't place things on it, and only drum group members should actually handle it at all. And, you want to remember it is a sacred ceremony, and not all moments are meant to be photographed. There's usually a sign, or they'll have an announcement of some kind that says when you can or cannot take pictures, and if you're unsure, ask permission first. And they have beautiful outfits, and sometimes you want to document them. But if the performer isn't performing, you want to, ask their permission before taking the photo. And even if they are performing in, the sacred circle, you want to look around or ask someone if it's okay to take videos before you do that. The powwows I have been able to go to in my life have always been very open and welcoming spaces, but as fun as they are, it's mindful to remember they are not just performances for entertainment. They are living and moving and breathing beautiful ceremonies. Today, powwows are held across the United States and Canada, both on reservations and in urban areas. The one I went to over the weekend was at the college I attended, right down my road. They serve as cultural preservation spaces, intertribal gatherings, educational experiences, spiritual reconnection points, but they can also create opportunities for people who may not have grown up in the culture to learn about these traditions and to connect to a piece of their heritage they haven't been able to otherwise get. I can trace back, I know who in my family was Native American, but they, the ones that were fully Native American died before I was born, and they were, adopted. And so they didn't know a whole lot of the traditions, but we still had stories that we passed down throughout my life. And there's still things that I do to this day because of the things that they passed on to their children who passed it on to me. But I never grew up in a reservation. I didn't grow up, with the regalia. I never learned the dances. There's a remembrance there when I go, though. And even when I first saw them for the first time, like I could almost imagine how they went. And it may be because I was a dancer in school. And so I pick up on how things kind of move, and when I hear music, I wanna move. I was never one, and I'm still not, someone who is able to study to music because I imagine routines, even nature or the drumming music. That's kind of the music I go to for meditation. And it's hard because I almost still can't use it because I hear a beat of a drum, and I can imagine how I would move to that music. And I like to kind of attribute that to my heritage. Even though I didn't grow up learning these dances, I didn't grow up going to powwows and dancing, I still feel very connected to that. And in a world that often tries to disconnect us, powwows are such powerful reminders of rhythm and community and belonging to something. If you ever get a chance to go to a powwow, I highly encourage you to do so. If we step back and look at powwows through a spiritual lens, we can feel how sacred they are. They remind us that rhythm is sacred and movement is medicine, and community can be such a healing experience. When you gather together with people who honor and celebrate the same things that you do, it can be a whole new experience. The drum, the circle, the dance, all of these are universal spiritual symbols that can be seen across all kinds of different traditions around the world. Powwows teach us that healing doesn't always happen in the silence, but it can happen in movement and freedom and music and shared presence with other beings. If you get an opportunity and you feel called to attend a powwow, go without expectation. go with openness and ready to listen and to learn. And most importantly, support indigenous communities and artists and voices whenever you can. I have been gifted so much in my life. I have been able to travel, and I have been able to travel through many different reservations, and they are beautiful and they are sad so much at the same time. So much has been taken from the indigenous people of America. And if you ever get a chance to read, some books about the history and about what happened during colonization to them, and, they were just pushed out of their homes and farther away, and it's incredible that there are powwows today to me. It's incredible that there is something still there, that they're such a resilient culture that, everything around them has changed. At one point, the land that my house was on was someone else's home, and at some point they got stripped of that. And it's it's such a sad thing to me. Like, I want to start crying when I think about it, that they are still here, they are still practicing their culture, and it's a beautiful, wonderful thing that they are still around and that we can experience of that. And if you ever get a chance to go to any different culture that is not something that you recognize, if they are having an open house or an open ceremony of some kind, go and experience it. Whether it's something, you never heard of or not, just see what it's about and see what other people believe in. If you're afraid to go, then find someone to go with you, someone who might like it just as well. It's a beautiful thing to experience things that we maybe not grew up in, things that we didn't learn in our own family's culture. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you for joining me on today's episode. If this resonates with you, please share it and continue the conversation. Until next week, stay grounded, stay connected, and stay in touch with your own spirit. I'll see you soon.